J.R. Stormont here, president of the FinOps Foundation. We've got Sasha from LiveRamp, who's joining us to talk about their story.
LiveRamp is headquartered in San Francisco. We are in the advertising technology space, and up until about a year and a half ago, we had an on-premise data center here in San Francisco, actually, which is an earthquake country for those of you that don't know. And we had a 3-day outage when there was like a heat event about 2.5 years ago, and we were down for almost 4 days. And so we planned and then executed a large GCP migration. We containerized in the process. We moved over 100 petabytes of Hadoop into GCP. And then, the finance department came knocking on our door about a month later. We had a budget that we had put together for the cloud, and we had done it in our sort of traditional way, which is we meet once a quarter with our finance team and the engineering leadership. We say, we're going to buy a bunch of racks of equipment. They're all, capital purchases, and then, rinse and repeat. In the cloud, your developers are making the decision to spend money. And they were, because all of a sudden they have an infrastructure API that can spin up, $1 million of resources with a single command. And they were doing that, and they were doing it for good reason. And we wanted to give them that privilege to be able to move quickly and satisfy our customers' needs. But we hadn't yet helped them understand and give them the tools to know what they were spending it on. But they were moving quickly, and they were spinning up all this stuff, and our budget was out of the range. We needed to solve the problem quickly. And so we did what I think people naturally do, which is look for optimizations. Yeah. And so we went across engineering, and we found all the low-hanging fruit, and we took care of that. But the budget still wasn't met, and resources were still getting spun up on the fly.
Yep.
And so we took another round, right? We sort of took a bucketed approach. We looked at application re-architecture, we looked at tagging, we looked at all the usual stuff. And we just kept on doing it again and again. And it was like this, not a flywheel, but like this iterative loop that we found ourselves in. And it surprised us because we weren't expecting it. We had thought about it, we had talked about it, we knew it might happen, but then it was actually happening, and that's an entirely different thing.
You talked about this iterative process you had to get into, and I want to come back to that in just a minute. There's something you said earlier that was finance came knocking on your door as if they were like a separate entity that is not connected to you. And then you had to sort of start working with them on this. I mean, what brought you to that place of needing to put in a FinOps or cloud financial management process that integrated finance with your teams? Like, how did you start to make that connection, and how did you get the developers on board with that?
We had a regular conversation with finance, but it's a traditional conversation. Like, prior to the cloud, it was once every quarter or once every month. And, we would look at what
looking check in on spending.
Yeah, exactly. It was exactly backward looking. And in the cloud, it had to be forward looking, and it had to be on a real-time basis. And so we found ourselves talking with finance every day, all of a sudden, right? And that was something for us to get used to. And at the same time, our senior VP of finance heard about FinOps from a friend or from a contractor, and he mentioned to us casually. And Patrick Raymond, who was my partner in crime at LiveRamp, we both went to the FinOps Foundation website and took a look at the principles there, and saw that FinOps was providing a framework that sort of mapped into part of what we were already doing and already thinking of. Great. But it presented a very holistic approach, a way of thinking about the problem, a way of organizing ourselves to the solution, right? That it made perfect sense. And it made perfect sense to us from different angles. There was the day-to-day, tactical thing of like not looking at ourselves as being on it like some sort of like a forced continuous wheel where, we look at the optimizations, figure out what makes sense, execute on it, and look at it again, but as a good and natural way of solving the problem. And then beyond that, of embedding this idea of efficiency, cost efficiency.
Not
Uh,
necessarily savings, right? It's like, how do we shift developers from moving from saving money to maximizing, right? And freeing up
exactly.
resources so that you can actually
Mhm.
develop products faster. How have you seen the concepts of agile and DevOps and things you're already running in your teams apply into this new process with your finance teams, and how has that adjusted how you work with them?
Our teams are, they're agile in the sense that we practice, we have a DevOps culture. We practice Scrum on all the teams, and this concept of efficiency as a measure of their application makes perfect sense to them. The concept of an iterative approach makes perfect sense to them. It reminds me a little bit of Kaizen from the 1980s,
Yes, I think
right?
it was a Toyota continuous improvement model, right, from the
Yeah,
80s. I've heard a
precisely.
lot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from the finance perspective, I think, you know, they they love it because they want a view into what engineering is spending, and they want to provide the visibility that engineers need to make these good decisions. When Patrick and I learned about FinOps, we took the class immediately with Mike Fuller,
Mm-hmm.
and we came back and we
Fascinating.
were excited enough to pitch a FinOps practice. And we decided to house it within engineering because we wanted it to be we wanted it to be as close to the problem as possible to be able to have perspective and solve it. But at the same time that we pitched it for engineering, we said that one of the principles is that it is a collaborative effort with the finance team,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and not only with finance, but any team that helps us solve the problem. And so it actually deepened the relationship that we had with the finance team. And they helped quite a bit because they were helping to provide dashboards and perspective that engineering didn't have. And then engineering, in turn, they were able to use that to provide back to finance the view that they needed to construct a good budget with us, to express to the marketplace what our numbers were going to be reliably.
Mhm.
So it's a really beautiful thing. And I'm not sure that we talk about the agile angle enough when we talk about FinOps.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is the solving it on your own. There's a key principle we talk about a lot, which is pushing accountability out to teams. And there was a great quote at Google Next last year by a guy from Target who said his advice to those in this area was, ask yourself, how can we provide information that teams need to make better decisions? Right? How do we get that out there to them? So on that topic, we're doing a conversation next week that is kind of Google focused, in the fact that LiveRamp is on Google, and a few of the other speakers. We've got Anders Hegman from Spotify speaking, and Stephanie Gooch from KPMG speaking about their experiences building FinOps on GCP. We will have a GCP billing representative there to answer questions if they come up. But the focus, and what I invite everybody who's watching to come attend next week, is really to hear the story, the longer story of how Sasha and Patrick from LiveRamp built their practice after this almost natural disaster that took down their data center. So definitely hope that you all can join us. It's June 4th at 9 a.m. Pacific. There'll be details below in this link, and hope to see you there. And we can all keep breaking down these silos that Sasha's talking about.